In India, a bus crash claims at least 12 lives after crashing off a bridge. Police say casualties include 3 children and 10 women. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. attends ASEAN Summit in Labuan Bajo, Indonesia. Department of Agriculture officials warn of possible repeat of fertilizer scam in 2004. U.S. Ambassador Nicholas Burns meets with Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang for a bilateral meeting. Chinese vessels talk ASEAN-India maritime drills in the South China Sea. And tech tycoon Mark Zuckerberg wins gold in his first martial arts competition. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. flies to Indonesia to attend the ASEAN Summit. Vin Pascua has the report.
From the Villamor Air Base in Pasay City, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. along with First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos attends the 42nd Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Summit. This year's theme is dubbed ASEAN Matters, Epicentrum of Growth, which chaired by Indonesia's President Joko Widodo. In a departure statement, the president aims to push community building efforts in the region and to secure the welfare and security of the Filipinos.
The interests of our country, including our continued efforts towards economic growth, attaining food and energy security, promoting trade and investment, combating transnational crimes such as the trafficking in persons, and protecting migrant workers in crisis situations, amongst others.
The president will also participate in the 15th Brunei Darussalam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, East ASEAN Growth Area of BIMP EAGA Summit. He is also scheduled to meet other ASEAN leaders along with the ASEAN Interparliamentary Assembly, representatives from the ASEAN Business Advisory Council, ASEAN Youth, and the High-Level Task Force on the ASEAN Community Post 2025 Vision.
And as the theme of this ASEAN Summit is clearly manifesting, it is once again towards economic growth and to recognize that ASEAN and Southeast Asia have been the partners that the other parts of the world, and I speak therefore of India, I speak of China, I speak of the European Union, the United States, Latin America, even some elements of Africa, look to Southeast Asia as the growth center for the global economy. And that is why it is very important that we go and continue to discuss amongst other ASEAN leaders of all the member states on how we can maximize and find that extra energy, that synergy from our working together.
It is expected that the ASEAN leaders will tackle the issues in regard to Southeast Asian internal peace amid the rising tension in geopolitical issues in the Indo-Pacific region while strengthening the regional bloc to be a fast-growing, inclusive, and sustainable economic region. Vin Pascua for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. calls the attention of the Department of Agriculture officials to clarify the issue of the controversial Memorandum Order Number 32. Eran Santos for the report.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. attends the 42nd ASEAN Summit to meet other members of the bloc in Labuan Bajo, Indonesia. In an interview of Net25's television and radio program Ano sa Palagay Nyo, Samahang Industriya ng Agrikultura or SINAG chairperson Rosendo So says that he already coordinated to the president about the farmers' concern about the Department of Agriculture's memorandum signed by Undersecretary Leocadio Sebastian. He warns that the fertilizers come in the times of the Arroyo administration may possibly occur again if the memorandum regulating the use of biofertilizers continues. He further states that there is a huge price between what the memorandum mandates with the price dictated by local manufacturers of fertilizers.
Kung ito ay totoong biofertilizer, may source naman tayo na 500 pesos or less dun sa presyo. So bakit sinight yung 2,000? And yung urea naman, hindi na 4,000, no? Yung dalawang bag. Ngayon, ang dalawang bag nasa ano na lang, nasa 2,400 na dalawang bag na yun. So mukhang mali yung memo na linabas. So dapat tignan mabuti and kasi nakita rin natin na yung mga bidding na nangyari, no, yung sa biofertilizer, linalagay nila sa 6,000, no? 6,000 pesos ang 5 milligram.
University of the Philippines Los Baños study shows that bio-N with urea will result in 11% more production of rice and corn. Spokesperson so implied that unnamed higher officials push to utilize expensive biofertilizers. DA regional directors also expressed their concern for the memorandum, believing it may repeat the fertilizers scam. Congressman Marco Huangco urges the House Committee on Agriculture and Food to investigate the DA's plan to buy biofertilizers. The congressman reminds the public of the previous 728 million peso fertilizer scam in the Arroyo administration. Eden Santos for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Bureau of Treasury records a national debt increase to 13.856 million or trillion pesos last month. Mian Corvera for the details.
According to the Bureau of Treasury, last February, the country's debt lies at 13.75 trillion pesos. However, last month, it rocketed to around 13.85 trillion. BTR sums that debt consists of 9.5 trillion pesos in domestic debt, 156 million pesos in direct loans, and 9.5 trillion pesos in debt securities. The government also recorded 4.3 trillion pesos worth of external debts based on foreign exchange rate of 54.31 pesos per dollar. The external obligation composed of 1.947 trillion pesos from loans and 2.396 trillion pesos from debt security. At 384.118 billion pesos, guaranteed debt till March was also recorded, which includes 202 billion pesos domestic debt and 182.35 billion pesos external debt. Mian Corvera for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, or NGCP, says establishing a power plant may take years in order to solve the power demand in the country. JD Mahinay tells us more.
According to National Grid Corporation of the Philippines spokesperson Cynthia Alabanza, the agency warns that the power supply in the country would be thin. This comes after demands for electricity rise amid the dry season. She adds that building power plants along with transmission lines requires planning ahead of time, claiming 10 years of preparation will be needed to ensure that demand will not overtake the supply increase. NGCP declared a red alert on the Luzon grid yesterday from 1 to 4 p.m. due to plant shutdowns and low power production. Power plants were back online around 5 p.m.
Well, no, 2 points, right? I just want to make it clear na yung nag-trip kahapon, 2 units lang. Coming into yesterday, meron ng 3 unit na unscheduled.
Wow.
So, hindi naman sa kahapon lahat yung 5 yan sabay-sabay tumirik. Meron ng 3 hindi gumagana at that time, nadagdagan lang ng 2 pa.
Alabanza says there will be no red or yellow alerts in the following days. However, the Department of Energy warns that there will be more yellow alerts throughout the month of May. Energy Undersecretary Rowena Guevara notes they already assumed the worst case with the absence of Ilijan natural gas plant, which is undergoing retrofitting works. This is computed if the Ilijan plant will remain inoperative this month. Guevara notes if the Ilijan plant comes operable, this will lessen yellow alerts for the rest of 2023. She adds that the unfinished Mindanao-Visayas interconnection project could transmit additional power supply to Luzon, as Mindanao only uses 70% of its power capacity. JD Mahinay for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Net25 sa ganang mamamayan asked netizens if they fear the construction of nuclear power plants in the Philippines. 92.3% of the respondents said no, while 7.7% expressed concern over building nuclear power plants. Madeline Villar-Moratillo reports.
Net25 survey says more than 90% of respondents favor the revival of building of nuclear plants in the country. The said result is almost the same as the survey of Department of Energy. The latter's poll shows 9 out of 10 Filipinos support the use of nuclear energy. Sa ganang mamamayan or SGM had an interview with Director Carlos Arcilia of the Department of Science and Technology and Philippine Nuclear Research Institute. Arcilia said the public should not worry if the Philippines will use nuclear energy. He explained there are 450 existing nuclear plants around the world. He said these plants have been operational for 50 to 60 years, and only 3 out of these nuclear sites reported accidents. Arcilia said people have been using nuclear technology for a long time.
Yung sa Amerika, yung 100 nilang nuclear plants, 60 anyos, 60 ako na. Tapos binibigyan pala ng lisensya for another 20 years. So ilang taon niya na nasa ilalim lang. So isipin mo nasa ilalim ka ng dagat, katabi mong natutulog yung nuclear plant. Yung teknolohiyang yan, nilipat lang mula doon sa submarine, nilipat sa lupa. So talagang matagal na ang basihan. It's a very mature technology. Tapos yun nga, kung ito-total nyo yung lahat ng operating hours ng nuclear plant sa buong mundo, over kung ilan ang matay. Yan po ang pinaka-safest.
Arcilia said building a small modular reactor, or SMR, is good since it will benefit the country. SMR has the size of a 20 or 40-foot turbine. It is cheaper than bigger nuclear reactors. But he said the reactors should be tested first before placing it on an island.
Di naman tayo pwedeng bumili ng first of a kind. Ibig sabihin, ayaw mong bumili ng prototype. Kung bilhin yung na-testing na. Nasa batas nga natin yan, yung ginagawang batas sa Congress ngayon, na di pwedeng bumili ang Pilipinas sa nuclear plant pag hindi kumanda ng ilang libong oras doon sa pinanggagalingang bansa. Hindi ka pwede makaroon ng accident, no?
Arcilia also insisted the Philippines has enough experience with nuclear waste management since there is geothermal plants in the country. Both energy plants use the same technology to dispose of nuclear waste. Madeline Villar-Moratillo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Justice says they have written a letter telling Timor-Leste that suspended Negros Oriental Representative Arnulfo Teves Jr. is a person of interest in murder cases. Mar Gabriel tells us more.
Department of Justice or DOJ Secretary Crispin Rimulya says suspended Negros Oriental Representative Arnulfo Teves Jr. is in Timor-Leste. He says Teves is seeking special asylum Teves is seeking special asylum status. The Justice Secretary also reiterates they are taking steps to designate Teves as a terrorist under the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020.
One more thing is that Mr. Teves entered Timor-Leste a week ago, trying to seek a special asylum status in Timor-Leste, and we have written a letter telling Timor-Leste that he's a person of interest in murder cases, and he's being considered for designation as a terrorist by the country.
Remulla asserts there is no valid reason for Teves to apply for protection visa with the intent to seek asylum.
There's a special provision in law for that. If you want to seek asylum, usually it's just for political purposes. But we don't see any political reason for him to seek asylum in Timor-Leste. It's really for not wanting to face the consequences of certain actions by which he's being held to account for in our courts of law.
Remulla believes Teves wants asylum to escape the murder charges filed against him. DOJ considers Teves as a person of interest in the slaying of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo and 9 others.
We're about to file the cases. There's a little, there are a few more details being ironed out. But anytime, mapafile yung case. At the latest, siguro yung Monday, pero we're trying to do it by Friday. I'm asking them to hurry it up na kung pwede, bilisan na kasi 2 buwan na. It's been more than 2 months since the murders.
Mar Gabriel, for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Health says Filipinos must remain vigilant as a response to the COVID-19 disease. Moira Encina files this report.
OHOIC Maria Rosario Vergeres says Filipinos should not be complacent considering the hike of COVID infections in the country. The health agency also logged an average of 1,400 infections per day. Vergeres says the figure is 87% higher than last week. Though WHO announced that COVID-19 is no longer a global health emergency, Vergeres believes this doesn't affect the country's health response. She explains the Philippines has its own declaration of public health emergency as signed by former President Duterte. She says this is still effective unless lifted by President Bongbong Marcos Jr. The health response includes emergency authorization of vaccines. The DOH also asked vaccine manufacturers to apply for a certificate of product registration or CPR. As of this time, it is only Janssen who applied for CPR before the Food and Drug Administration. Vergeres says the government will also study subsidization of vaccines.
And we will subject it to that, and we will know if government can still subsidize a portion of the population.
Moira Encina for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Financial app GCash asks for dispensation after public complaints over unauthorized deduction to some user accounts. According to GCash, there are some users who have difficulties accessing their account, but they ensure that their e-wallets are secure. GCash explains that no hacking occurred and vows if there are any deductions in the user's funds, it will be reimbursed. GCash advises its 79 million registered users to reboot their smartphones to avoid any problems. Coming up, Russia launches a Victory Day drone attack on Ukraine. The European Union proposes sanctions on 8 Chinese companies for trading with Russia. And China expels Canadian diplomat in a tit-for-tat move. Stay tuned for more stories around the globe when we return. Watching Mata ng Agila International. To receive more trusted, connected, and on-point news, follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.
nanalo na. Uwi na. Cajun Seafood!
Please welcome Charlie.
Meron din tayong bisita. Merong makiki si Team Christiana Madrid.
Hoy! Umising ka nga dyan.
Bakit?
Nagkakagulo yung kapitbahay. Tayo yung inaaway nila. Ang lakas-lakas mo daw humilik.
We now welcome you back to Mata ng Agila International. Air raid sirens have sounded across Ukraine after Russia launched the biggest ever kamikaze drone attack on Kyiv. The salvo came 24 hours before Russia's Victory Day, which commemorates the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany during World War II. Kyiv's Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said nearly 60 drones had been launched by Russia, describing it as the worst attack so far. He added that all 36 drones had been destroyed over Kyiv, but 5 people had been injured by falling debris from downed drones. The Ukrainian military said the latest Russian raids lasted for more than 4 hours and were launched shortly after midnight. Civilians saw Iranian-made Shahid kamikaze drones swarm across the country. Emergency services responded after drone wreckage fell on a runway at Zuliani International Airport, one of the city's 2 commercial airports. Elsewhere in the Black Sea port city of Odessa, a warehouse was set ablaze after 8 missiles were fired at targets by Russian bombers. Ukraine's Red Cross said its warehouse with humanitarian aid was destroyed and all aid deliveries had to be suspended. Russia's Wagner troops continue to exhaust Ukrainian forces in Artemovsk. RT correspondent Murad Gazdiev reports from the battleground.
The final act of the battle for Bakhmut. Ukrainian forces cling on to the last few residential suburbs they still control. Over there, a Russian airstrike. We heard the Su-25 jets come in, launch unguided rockets and fly off again. But this is the horizon in Bakhmut. Everything's on fire, burning. To survive, you travel quick, cover to cover. We followed our Wagner hosts. We are still a few hundred meters from the nearest Ukrainian positions. They may be disheartened and demoralized, but they have artillery, a lot of it.
As we progress through the city, it appears as though they're letting up, giving up positions, but they're still trying to cling on to every building, hitting back. It's a fight.
On the western side of the city, that is Ukrainian artillery, by the way. That is the military base on the western side of the city. Ukrainian troops retreated from here under attack, under the pressure by the Wagner private military company, but they left an awful lot of mines over the entire grounds, and those are slowly being cleared.
Italy's embassy in Kyiv has advised its citizens to leave Ukraine immediately. In a message posted online, Rome said its citizens should use all means available to leave Kyiv. The embassy warned that missile attacks have been recorded in Ukraine. Italy also discouraged its citizens from traveling to Ukraine. Rangers arrested former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan during a court appearance in Islamabad. Footage of the arrest shows paramilitary personnel escorting Khan to an armored vehicle. A top police official said Khan was arrested in a case related to Al-Qadir Trust. The former Pakistani leader is facing corruption charges. Khan has denied the charges. He said the cases were politically motivated. He also accused a senior military officer of an assassination attempt. A nationwide protest has now begun in Pakistan after Khan's aides criticized the government for the arrest. Poland's state-controlled oil company PKN Orlen is losing billions over sanctions imposed on Russian oil. According to PKN Orlen's chief executive Daniel Obajtek, the company forfeits about $27 million a day due to Russian oil of $30 per barrel. The company uses Russian oil not covered by sanctions piped through the Duzhba network for its Czech refinery in Litvinov. Last month, Orlen announced that it had ended its last contract with Russian company Tatneft. Orlen dominates the Polish market and also has refining operations in Lithuania. Obajtek says that he sees the potential to expand abroad, especially in Germany. The European Union has proposed sanctioning 8 Chinese companies for trading with Russia. Sources say the bloc targets Chinese firms they believe have provided Russia with electronic items which can be used for military purposes. Top officials believe EU wants to curb exports to nations seen as involved in bypassing Russia's trade restrictions. The proposal identified China, Turkey, UAE, as well as countries in Central Asia and Caucasus. China earlier urged the EU not to take the wrong path. Xi Jinping's government also said they will take action to safeguard its rights and interests. India discovered another lithium reserve in Degana town. Experts and mining officials believe this could reduce India's dependency on China. RT's Runjun Sharma tells us more.
Well, this is for the third time in the recent past that India has found lithium reserves, this time in this town called Degana in the northern Indian state of Rajasthan. Before that, India found lithium reserves in Jammu and Kashmir. This was in February this year. And prior to that, it found lithium in the state of Karnataka. But that wasn't much quantity, neither quality, wasn't commercially viable. So now officials are saying that this could be the biggest lithium find so far, more than 6 million tons of lithium that India did find in Jammu and Kashmir early this year. Now, early assessment also is indicating that as far as these finds are concerned, they could meet a majority of the country's demand. Lithium, which is also called white gold. Why is it called white gold? Because A, it is white in its purest form, and also because it's as precious as gold in the current context. So now India for a while has been trying to push for its electronic vehicle policy, because India has been also dealing with a pollution crisis of late, and these lithium finds, which is why become a big deal for India, because lithium is used to make batteries that are used in electronic vehicles, but also it's used for making mobile phones, laptops, your wristwatches. So all of these really powered by lithium. Also, India for a while has been wanting to cut down on its lithium imports. India imports lithium despite being mineral rich from countries, say for example, China. And now with these lithium finds, experts, officials are pointing out that India may not only become self-sufficient or self-reliant, but it also could become a source to the world.
Senegal's key opposition figure Ousmane Sonko was handed a 6-month suspended sentence for defamation. A Senegalese court on Monday handed down the ruling, potentially jeopardizing his bid for the presidency next year. Initially receiving a 2-month suspended sentence and a hefty fine in March, Ousmane got served 4 additional months for defaming tourism minister named Mabaya Niang, and the Dakar Appeals Court. A spokesman for Songko's party, Oisenu Lee, left the court without responding to questions. Songko failed to turn up to Monday's proceedings after warning he would no longer respond to court summonses or without guarantees for his safety. In addition to appealing his defamation conviction, Songko has denied the rape charge, saying he is the victim of a plot by President Macky Sall to torpedo his 2024 candidacy. The government has denied the accusation, and the alleged opposition leader has drummed up demonstrations to avoid justice. Sall's refusal to rule out running for a controversial third term as president is usually hailed as unconstitutional practice. This statement has done little to ease political tensions. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan dives into the final two-week stretch before a momentous election that has turned into a referendum on his 2 decades of divisive but transformative rule. He was flanked by the president of Azerbaijan and the Ankara-backed premier of Libya, the two countries where drones built by his son-in-law's company helped swing the outcome of their own wars. Entered as ever about whether Erdogan has done more harm than good in the only Muslim majority country of the NATO defense bloc. Polls show him running neck and neck against secular opposition leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu and his alliance of 6 disparate parties. Erdogan continues to be idolized by more conservatives of Turkey after unshackling religious restrictions and bringing modern homes and jobs to millions of people through infrastructure and state investment. Turkey is now filled with hospitals and interconnected with airports and highways that stimulate trade and give the vast country a more inclusive feel. He empowered conservative women by enabling them to stay veiled in school and in civil service, a development that the republic has not seen since the Ottoman Empire. Inversely, the lira lost more than half its value and inflation hit an eye-popping 85% since his experiment began. Millions lost their savings and fell into deep debt. Polls show the economy worrying Turks more than any other issue, a point of pressure utilized by his rival Kılıçdaroğlu. The 74-year-old former civil servant pledges to restore economic order and bring in vast sums of Western investors who fled the chaos of Erdogan's more recent rule. Representatives of 2 warring Sudanese generals are expected to meet in Saudi Arabia to discuss ceasefire mechanisms for humanitarian aid into the country. The U.S. State Department and the Saudi Foreign Ministry have helped organize the meeting, which would take place in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. The Saudi government has been running evacuation ships between Jeddah and Port Sudan. The 2 generals have agreed to cease fires in recent days, but their troops have violated them. The Sudanese army confirmed that its delegation left for Jeddah to discuss details of the armistice, which aimed at securing and creating appropriate conditions for humanitarian situation of the citizens. Sudan chaos broke out in April between the 2 forces, the army chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his deputy turned rival Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, who heads a paramilitary rapid support forces. At least 550 people have been killed and 4,926 wounded, according to the latest figures, which are likely to be incomplete. People queue for bread outside a bakery in Khartoum amid dire shortages of water, food, and basic supplies. Battles between warring generals continue to rage for the 4th week in the Sudanese capital. More than 100,000 people have already fled the country. Saudi Arabia has assumed a major role in evacuations from Sudan. It has dispatched naval and commercial vessels, bringing thousands of people from numerous countries across the Red Sea from Port Sudan. Multiple truce deals have failed. Fighting erupted on April 15 in the poverty-stricken country with a history of instability. Hundreds of people have been killed and thousands wounded because of the fighting. The conflict has sparked multiple warnings of a catastrophic humanitarian crisis. Chinese boats and maritime militia reportedly tracked the drills carried out by the navies of India and ASEAN countries in the South China Sea. An independent expert in Vietnam said that Beijing appeared to be using the militia to intimidate. They apparently wanted to disrupt the naval exercises, which concluded on Monday. The Indian sources said that the Chinese militia was in the Vietnamese exclusive economic zone and the naval vessels even crossed each other, but they didn't engage. The Chinese research vessel was also following these boats towards the same area when the Indian authorities were tracking the movements of at least 5 militia boats. Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang had already warned countries in the Asia-Pacific not to meddle with intensifying rivalries between major powers in the region.
外长女士讲，新冷战、大国竞争不应该在我们的亚太地区出现，地区的国家不应该被迫选边站队。我们相信，印尼和东盟将本着本地区稳定、发展、繁荣的根本利益，独立自主地做出判断和选择。
In a tit-for-tat move, China said it was expelling Canada's consul in Shanghai after Ottawa announced it was sending home a Chinese diplomat accused of intimidating a lawmaker. They follow an outcry over allegations that Chinese intelligence had planned to target MP Michael Chong and his relatives in Hong Kong with sanctions for sponsoring a motion condemning China's conduct in the Xinjiang region. In response, Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly said that they do not tolerate any form of foreign interference, and Toronto-based Chinese diplomat Zhao Wei would have to leave the country. On Tuesday, the Chinese Foreign Ministry condemned the decision to expel Zhao. They ordered Canadian Consul Jennifer Lynn Lalonde to leave the country by May 13 and urged Canada to stop unreasonable provocations.
对加方无理行径，中方决定采取对等反制措施，宣布加拿大驻上海总领馆领事甄议会为不受欢迎的人，要求其5月13日前离华。这是中方维护自身合法权益之举，完全正当和必要。
Up next, Serbian president tightens gun control after mass shootings. Airstrikes kill well-known drug dealers in Syria. And hundreds die as floods devastate the eastern Congo. Please don't go away. We've got more stories for Mata ng Agila International.
Bilang si Joey sa isang sikat na soft drink commercial na lumabas noong late 80s. Ngayon, isa na siyang writer, host, at entrepreneur. Mr. RJ Ledesma.
Kumusta, Attorney Sal? Ikaw ito lang idol ko. Hindi lang sa brilliant legal mind, kundi sa fashion icon ka rin para sa akin po.
Nakita niyo ang galing mong bola. Ngayong Miyerkules, alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito sa Net 25.
This portion is brought to you by Robic Builder.
The leader of an anti-monarchist campaign group is considering suing the Metropolitan Police after officers arrested 52 protesters at the King's coronation. Anti-monarchists have criticized the policing of the coronation of King Charles as heavy-handed. Demonstrators said that they have been robbed of their right to peaceful protest in Britain after dozens of protesters were arrested and detained into the night. Police said their duty to prevent disruption outweighed the right to protest. Republic Group said some members were released on Saturday evening after nearly 16 hours in custody. Republic Group leader Graham Smith was arrested along with a dozen other protesters in central London as thousands of royal fans gathered in the capital for the coronation on Saturday. He is now considering filing charges against the British MPs and the Crown. London's Metropolitan Police said on Sunday, local time, that 64 arrests had been made for offenses, including breach of the peace and conspiracy to cause a public nuisance. Serbia's President Alexander Vučić has pledged to tighten gun control rules after 2 mass shootings at schools this week. This measure is unprecedented due to the large number of weapons remaining in civilian hands after the wars of past decades.
Svi ljudi koji imaju oružje, to je oko 400.000 lica, ne pričamo o lovačkom oružju. Proći će reviziju, neće ostati više od 30 do 40.000 komada. Dakle, izvršit ćemo gotovo potpuno razoružanje Srbije.
Alexander Vučić announced a moratorium on all gun permits, a practical disarmament of Serbians, and more frequent medical and psychological checks of gun owners. In a televised address, he announced plans to expand the police force and send armed officers to protect every school. Vučić called Thursday's attack a terrorist act and branded the shooters as villains that will never see the light of day again, further adding that he will never get out of prison. Like in other Western Balkan nations, guns are ubiquitous in Serbia and often used to shoot in celebration at weddings or birthdays, especially in rural areas. Shooting ranges are also widely popular among the masses, but due to the ease with which the 2 suspected shooters obtained lethal arms has raised concerns about gun control in Serbia.
Za sve ovo znamo da će biti velikih problema, ali što manje cevi bude bilo, to će manje opasnosti biti za našu decu i za naše građane. I svi znamo i svi se pravimo da ne znamo.
Airstrikes over southern Syria early Monday killed one of the country's most well-known drug dealers. The strikes come a day after Arab governments reinstated Syria to the Arab League following the country's suspension for its crackdown on protests that led to a civil war. As Arab governments gradually rekindle ties with Damascus, one of the key topics of discussion has been Syria's illicit drug industry, especially the illegal amphetamine Captagon. The first strike targeted drug dealer Marai al-Ramtan, his wife, and 6 children in the eastern countryside of the Sweda province. The other hit a facility in Daraa province used by Iran-backed groups to produce and store drugs before smuggling them to Jordan. Activities and authorities believe Jordan is likely behind the airstrike, with a Captagon producer among the most wanted by Jordanian authorities for facilitating drug smuggling across the border with the backing of a small militia. Neither the pro-government radio station nor Jordanian authorities provided further details. Both Syria and neighboring Lebanon have become gateways for the drug to the wider Middle East, particularly to the Gulf. President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy will meet this week to resolve a standoff over the U.S. debt ceiling. Biden is calling on lawmakers to raise the federal government's self-imposed $31.4 trillion borrowing limit without conditions. But McCarthy earlier said his chamber will not approve any deal that does not cut spending to address a growing budget deficit. Experts also do not expect a swift deal between Biden and McCarthy, but they have warned that not resolving the issue would send the U.S. economy to a historic default this mid-year. Vietnam plans to ask all social media users on platforms such as Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok to verify their identities. Authorities say the new law aims to combat online scams, but critics say this move could curb freedom of expression. No details were shared about the potential punishments for breaking this law. Vietnam's policy comes after authorities said they would probe TikTok over its alleged toxic content. Authorities also asked foreign tech companies to establish representative offices in Vietnam. Landslides triggered by heavy rains wreak havoc in the village of Bushushu. Bushushu is just one of the many villages devastated by floods that have killed hundreds of people in South Kivu. South Kivu is located east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Eastern DR Congo's disaster came 2 days after floods killed more than 130 people. It has destroyed thousands of homes in neighboring Rwanda. Rwanda lies on the other side of Lake Kivu. Experts blame climate change for the extreme weather events happening with increased frequency and intensity. In Mexico, hundreds of migrants crowd at the migration offices in the city of Tapachula, Chiapas. They are waiting for safe passage into the United States. On Thursday, May 11, U.S. President Joe Biden's administration will lift Title 42. Title 42 is the strict protocol implemented by Donald Trump to deny entry to migrants based on the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes asylum seekers. The looming expiration has raised fears of a surge of illegal entries along the southern U.S. border. Some believe, however, the rule shift could make it more difficult to enter the U.S. In India, a bus crash claims at least 25 lives after plunging off a bridge. Local officials say the bus driver fell asleep at the wheel. Casualties include 3 children and 10 women. Police say the suspect had fled from the scene of the incident. According to a World Bank report in 2021, India accounts for 11% of the global death toll in vehicular accidents, despite its small percentage of the world's vehicles. The report adds an estimated 150,000 car crash fatalities are recorded annually in India, about 1 individual every 4 minutes. Residents of Yangon are sweltering under soaring temperatures. They are struggling to cook as daily power blackouts switch off air conditioning and electric fans. Myanmar Department of Meteorology and Hydrology says the temperature in the city hit 41 degrees Celsius. Local residents have to wake up very early in the morning to cook before it gets too hot. The group of glaciologists from the University of California, Irvine, and NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory reports findings that the Petermann Glacier in Greenland shows signs of melting. According to UCI scientist Enrico Chirachi, Petermann's grounding line migrates between 2 and 6 kilometers as tide come in and out. This comes with an explanation that the grounding line did not migrate with the tides, which shows another vital source of melting that could lead to sea level rise acceleration. Study shows that between 2016 and 2022, ocean tides melted a 670-foot tall hole in the glacier along the grounding line. NASA says Greenland's melting ice is the single largest contributor to the increase in sea level. Coming right up, researchers design 3D printed cake slice. Mark Zuckerberg wins gold in a jiu-jitsu tournament. And Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer drops second trailer. Catch the latest in business, sports, and entertainment when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Yan po mga kaibigan ang ating mga balitang nagaganap dito po sa aking kinaroroonan. Abangan na lamang ang susunog. Susunog? Bakit susunog? Diba dapat susunod?
Susunog!
Ha?
Susunog ka kay... May nasusunog! Nasusunog ang goodwill!
Nasusunog? Ha? Nasusunog? Teka muna, sandali lang. Nagbabaga mga balita. Ang nagaganap ngayon dito sa ating kinaroroonan. Bakit? Anong nangyayari?
Nasusunog ang goodwill!
Nasusunog? Ha?
Attorney, ito daw sa kusina nagsimula! Hindi, nasusunog! Sa swimming pool! Sa swimming pool! Ano sa swimming pool? Paano mangyayari sa swimming pool?
Teka muna, sandali lang! Chichinelasin ko kayong lahat. Ano ang pinangyarihan ng sunog? Saan ang galing? Sino nagsunog? Yan po ang malalaman natin mga kasagutan sa Season 2 ng Goodwill.
Halika na! Baka doon sa kusina! Miss Corina, pwede kong pa-shoutout? Sabihin lang, shoutout, Mang Pepe. Mang Pepe, ano ba tayo na nagsusunog din? Okay, dali.
NASA and Rocket Labs launched 2 storm tracking satellites called Tropics in space. Tropics constellation will consist of 4 CubeSats in low Earth orbit. The CubeSats will measure the hour-by-hour formation and progression of tropical cyclones with enhanced specificity. What's for dessert? In the near future, you could be served with a 3D printed slice of cake. Researchers have designed a device that bakes, which could change the face of food technology. Researchers at Columbia University School of Engineering have created a laser-cooked cake. The device that they invented was able to print out a cheesecake with 7 ingredients. The researchers used food inks before cooking the cake using a laser. The cake that they 3D printed contained Nutella, banana, peanut butter, and jam. This software-controlled cooking could be used in the future to whip up personalized meals designed for patients and even athletes with dietary restrictions. Or if one is in a rush to eat, this technology could be very helpful. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg takes home silver and gold medals in his first jiu-jitsu martial arts tournament. This was held at Woodside High School in California, near the Silicon Valley headquarters of Meta. The tech billionaire started studying martial arts during the coronavirus pandemic. He sought tutelage with Dave Camarillo, who taught several Ultimate Fighting Championships, mixed martial arts champions. Zuckerberg competes for the Guerrilla Jiu-Jitsu team, a California-based training company that offers beginner and advanced courses to children ages 3 years to adults. In the 2023 NBA playoffs, the Miami Heat and Los Angeles Lakers earned Game 4 victories. Jimmy Butler led the Miami Heat to a win over the New York Knicks 109-101 and taking the series lead 3-1. He scored 27 points and 10 assists, while Bam Adebayo added 23 points and 13 rebounds. Game 5 will be on Thursday in New York, where the 8th-seeded Miami can advance to the Eastern Conference Finals with a win. The Los Angeles Lakers has found some unsung hero on Lonnie Walker for a victory over the Golden State Warriors, taking the series lead 3-1. Lonnie Walker, the fourth, scored 15 points in the fourth quarter alone, helping LeBron James and the Lakers with a 104-101 win over the Warriors. The Lakers can also advance to the Western Conference Finals with a win on Thursday inside the Warriors' Chase Center Arena. A brand new trailer for Oppenheimer was released. The newly dropped trailer offers closer looks at the star-studded cast, including Cillian Murphy, Florence Pugh, Emily Blunt, Robert Downey Jr., Matt Damon, and Leslie Groves Jr. Tom Conti also appears briefly as a somber-looking Albert Einstein. Oppenheimer centers around the legacy of J. Robert Oppenheimer, who is credited as the inventor of the atomic bomb. Based on a biographical novel, the film follows a physicist as he works alongside a team of government scientists to develop nuclear weapons in the early 1940s. Directed by Christopher Nolan, Oppenheimer will hit theaters globally on July the 21st. And to help you get through this week, here's a quote from the author of Bell Jar, Sylvia Plath. Everything in life is writable about if you have the outgoing guts to do it and the imagination to improvise. The worst enemy to creativity is self-doubt. And if you don't know when or where to start, start. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Nina Rich Hilago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.